welcome to another episode of Hoosier State Hoops. I'm your host, Drew Everhart, and my co-host is Kris Mills, as always. Of course, a big thank you goes out to our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. If you need a quote for your car or home, give Beth and her team a call at their office in Shelbyville. Number is 317-392-3922. On this episode, we will be talking about the Indiana Fever, who have completed their regular season, and the WNBA playoffs are on the way. Kris, we're thinking they're going to play the Sun. It's not 100% set in stone yet, but we're pretty sure. But the Fever did fall to the Washington Mystics Thursday night, 92-91. What were your overall thoughts on this game?
It's funny. I'm looking at our rundown sheet here, and I had put 92-21. For a second, I thought, wait, was that the actual score? So I'm glad you got the score right. My bad on that. I'm like, man, it was actually like a really, besides them losing, it was actually an entertaining game. It was weird though. So Kelsey Mitchell got hurt. She only played 4 minutes. She turned her ankle. The announcers on the game said that she was fine to return to the bench. So I think maybe she could have played if it wasn't like in the situation that they're in or the scenario they're in as far as like the playoffs start Sunday. But so, one starter didn't play basically the whole first half. And then the second half, Indiana really wasn't playing well. So Christy Sides pulled the rest of the starters, like mainly Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Melissa Smith, Lexi Hull. They didn't play a lot, but then so the bench got in. Really wasn't playing well at first, but then like they made this like giant comeback. Christy Wallace, who really hasn't played a lot since the Olympic break, she had 17 points, which is a leading scorer. So like once they found some rhythm and got going, got some got their blood flowing, they almost won the game. It came down to Grace Berger, who was an IU graduate. She had a last second shot to win it and then just missed, came up short. So really kind of a fun game. I was talking to you before we started. Like we've watched like Caitlin Clark and the starters play so much, like so many minutes throughout the season, and then they, it was just nice to see some other players get some shine. So
It was always the most fun part of a few years ago for Purdue when Tommy Luce would come into the game. I mean, because like you've seen the starters enough, you're up by a lot, or you have like a playoff spot secured like the Fever do. It's just fun to see something different for a change.
and that and like it was like you could tell that like the Fever starters on the bench, and I'm sure this was the same with Purdue in that scenario. Like the starters on the bench were super excited every time like the bench players who were in the game were scoring. So it was just cool. Like you can tell like the chemistry with the Fever. It's great culture. The girls really like each other. I'm sure there's things that we don't see, or as far as like a little bit of drama here and there, but like for the most part, it's of any team that I've kind of been following. It seems like there's not a lot of any of the players like not liking each other or any animosity towards the other ones. So yeah, it was just cool to see. So the one thing I thought was interesting. This was the biggest crowd. This is what they said in the broadcast anyway. This was the biggest crowd in WNBA history. This was not played where the Mystics usually play. It was moved. The total crowd was 20,711, which was a WNBA record.
Wow. And you got to think, again, no discredit to the Mystics, but you got to think that, the Fever are hot. They also have Caitlin Clark. You think that had to do something with it.
Yeah, I think, well, the fact that the Mystics were like, if they would have, so I believe the scenario was if the Mystics won, which they did, and then the Atlanta Dream lost. I think there might have been a scenario where they could have gotten in, but the
Oh,
Atlanta Dream ended up winning the night. They beat New York. They were up 20 last time I saw in the second half, and it was and New York was playing with their starters, and New York's the number one team in the league as far as number one in the standings. See if I can
they're a
find those real quick.
buzzsaw.
Yeah, 32-8, and the Dream 15-25, and they're the 8 seed. So looks like that they updated the standings. So right now it's we'll talk about this next, but one is the Liberty at 32-8. Lynx are number 2, 30-9. Sun 28-12. Aces 26-13. Storm 24 and 15, Fever 20 and 20. So it'll be the Fever and the Sun playing on Sunday, looks like in the first round.
Yeah, so I mean, you brought it up. I mentioned it a little bit before. The Sun, we've talked about a couple podcasts ago. We think that this is kind of a good matchup for the Fever. What are your thoughts going into Sunday?
Yeah, well, they asked Caitlin Clark, who would you play, rather play of the top three teams? And obviously, she can't answer that question honestly. But I just think if you're looking at it, the stats, and um, I think this is the team that you wanted to play, and this is my reasoning. Obviously, all three of the teams that we could have played, four teams, or any of the teams, regardless, would have been good. The top five, six teams in the WNBA, I mean, there's not a ton of separation, in my opinion. I know the records maybe say differently, but like, especially at this point in the season, everybody's, obviously the teams who've made the playoffs are kind of rolling right now. So, but the thing with the Sun, and I'm looking at their stats right now, what makes them dangerous is they have six players who score in double figures. So, two players, Marina Mabry and Dewana Bonner, they both average 15.1. But their best player is Alyssa Thomas. She's getting I think votes, or she's getting like there's talk about her making all at WNBA first team, but she's averaging like five less points per game this season. But she just does everything. She averages 10.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 7.9 assists. So I mean, she's just kind of like a triple double threat every time she walks on the court. But like what I mentioned in past podcasts with the Sun is like I just don't feel like they have someone like I know like Mabry and Bonner can score, but like I just don't they just don't scare me as far as like someone who can get 30 or go off or and I feel like the Fever have two of those players. Granted, hopefully Kelsey Mitchell's okay with her ankle, but I just feel like with the Fever are more dangerous. Offensively now, it really is going to come down to defense as far as if the Fever are going to have a chance at all. But if they can play even decent defense, I think they'll have a really good shot against the Sun.
And the Fever have kind of been coming around on the defensive end, but we mentioned, you definitely don't want New York, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, don't want any of that. The Aces, who, their record is not what that team is at all. I mean, they're defending champions, of course. Asia Wilson's MVP. They got Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray. I mean, just a bunch of great players. And Minnesota, they're a tough matchup. But yeah, the Sun were kind of the most optimal. And again, you mentioned it. All these teams are good, and they made the playoffs for a reason. But, the Fever could surprise some people. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. Like I like the three-game format where it's like but it kind of like I guess it go either way. You could get hot for two games, or you could just like play really bad that first game. If you play bad that first game, I just feel like with a young group with not a ton of playoff experience, that might be tough to overcome mentally. But also, it could be one of those things where like they're young enough, they just they don't know what they don't know. Like they just they don't care. It's just like they're gonna. We talked about this before too with Caitlin Clark, and she's not gonna have nerves playing in a big
Mm-hmm.
environment. So yeah, I think this is it's exactly what you said with the other teams, especially like now with Las Vegas. They were kind of getting hot at the end of the season. So I don't want to mess with Asia Wilson or have to deal with
No.
her. Yeah. So, and then, like you said, Brianna Stewart. Um, and then I think Minnesota's the best team in the league as far as just overall. So, yeah, as far as the matchup goes, I think the Fever got a good draw or a good matchup.
I think you bring up a good point with the three-game format with a young team like the Fever, because Fever come out, surprise people, they hit them, they punch them in the mouth, they win game one. All you got to do is win one of the next two. That's all you got to do. Whereas you lose, you got to win two in a row. And that's tough, I think, for a younger team to understand that. And once they hear it's win or go home from here on out, that's kind of the moments where I don't think they like to be in.
Yeah, and I just don't think like a 5 game series or a 7 game series I know they don't do that in sports like 7 game series to start, but I just feel like even a 5 game series, like I just don't know if like we're not consistent. I mean, we're good. The Fever are good. I say we, but like the Fever are good. Um, and they've shown like they can compete with the top teams, but they're not like, I mean, they finished 20-20. They're not consistently doing it yet. So I just feel like to win a series, the team is more consistent. Maybe the playoff experience comes into play more in the 5 game series. But yeah, like in the 3 game, it's like, man, whoever's rolling at the time, really, it could be one of those things too, where the Fever just come out and don't make a shot, or or that could happen
Yeah.
with the Sun. So it's going to be really interesting, especially not only this series, but watching the other series too, and who advances. And this will be the first time I've really watched the WNBA playoffs closely, so I'm just really curious to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it too. It would be one of those things. I would see the finals go on. Like if you go to a restaurant, it'd be on. Like you go to Buffalo Wild Wings or something. But yeah, I've never followed it closely, so I'm excited for that. And again, another week with this podcast, another Caitlin Clark topic. The season's officially over now. All the records are done. I mean, there's a whole laundry list. If you look up Caitlin Clark records and go on ESPN, there's a laundry list of records that she owns now after a rookie year. What is your most impressive one for Caitlin Clark?
Well, I mean, the most impressive part of it all is like they can't. We talked about this before. They can't all fit on one page, but trying to pick
Yeah.
one, probably like just going with just the one that stands out to me is the 19 assist game. I just feel like a lot of things have to go right for you to have that many assists in a game. And I mean, there's times where there's been a conversation on X lately about how's like Caitlin Clark dominated in her rookie season. And I'm not saying she's like consistently dominated from start to finish, but like, man, if you have 19 assists in 1 game, that's a pretty dominant game because I just feel like with you, you're a point guard, you have the ball in your hands. Most of the time, you're controlling what you do on, offense. You're controlling where your teammates are at. So, and just more things than that. So, putting your teammates in positions to score, them making shots, a lot of things have to go right. So that was the most impressive for me. Um, it it was one of those things where it's like, I mean, that can never happen again. Obviously, like
Mm-hmm.
we think it will with her. Maybe she'll get like 20 to 25 in the game, but 19 assists in 1 game. Yeah, it was really special to watch that. But what was yours?
Mine is in the same vein. It's the same stat. WNBA single season record for assists. Again, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of things have to go right for you to get 1 assist, let alone 19 a game, or lead the league, or have the most assists in a league's history for a season. And yeah, to me, it just proves that, all the doubters that Caitlin Clark had, I think they can go home now. It's over at this point. Single season record for assists is insane to me.
No, I totally agree with that. And I mean, that one, if you think about it, it's probably, I mean, harder to do than just, I don't know. We could go back and forth on that all day. What's harder to do, 19 assists in 1 game or however many assists she's had in this season? So the record, I think it's over 700. But
Yeah.
another one I thought was crazy, not to keep going about her records, but the first triple double by a rookie, that's just kind
Mm-hmm.
of surprising because like you got to think, man, there's like no other rookie's ever done that. But I also think, this is like maybe a question for you, like. Do you think now, like, because obviously within the last, I don't know, let's say maybe 10 years, I don't know when Russell Westbrook went on his little tear of like averaging a triple double,
So
but
that
just
would have
since the
been
game has
16,
changed.
17, because KD
Okay, so
left in
almost,
16.
okay, so that was almost 10 years ago, but like I
Yeah.
feel like since the game's been changing to go more, like, more 3 pointers, it's a quicker pace, more scoring. Do you think that like, um, triple doubles are more, are less rare these days?
Oh man, that's tough. Because I mean, you have to be a certain type of player to get a triple double. You don't see a lot of centers getting triple doubles unless I mean they're a really good passing center like Nikola Jokic, but those are a dime a dozen. Because I mean, like James Harden can get triple doubles on an easy route, although now he's a point guard now. I would say they're a little less rare, but it's still a very impressive accomplishment to do, especially when because no one can play 40 minutes a game unless I mean you're an absolute Iron Man. But to do that in such little time, it's still very impressive.
Yeah, I just feel like obviously with if you break it down in simple, like it's there's more shots, which means more chances to get assists, more chances to get rebounds, more points to be scored. So I feel like it's a little easier to get a triple double now. But so maybe that's why we saw Caitlin Clark become the first rookie to get the record, or we just because she's that good. So, but yeah, we could go on and
But
on about all
also
the
the
records.
first triple double in Fever history. Think of like Tamika Catchings, all the great players that the Fever have had. She's the first triple double in the
Right.
franchise's history.
And I don't know all the, I couldn't probably even name the top five players in Fever history, but I'd be guessing that Kelsey Mitchell would be up there. And like you just said, Kelsey Mitchell is as great as she is. She's probably not the type of player to get a triple double because like you said you have to be a certain
Mm-hmm.
type of player. So yeah, really hard to do. Not only have to be a certain type of player, but like we talked about earlier, things have to go right for to get that triple double. I think one of her triple doubles, the second one, it was she got the very last rebound of the game.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, that
just
was where she didn't know, or like Kelsey Mitchell didn't know why everyone was cheering so loud for a rebound when they were up like seven or something. They had won the game pretty handedly.
yeah, and then she's like when she figured out, of course she was like, oh wow, yeah, that is because obviously she knows how impressive it is. So for her, not only did she do it once, but she did it twice. So yeah, we could go on and on about Caitlin Clark's records, but I just wanted to talk about which ones were the most impressive. So, but I feel like we kind of handled that, and the assist ones were definitely stood out to both of us. It looks like.
Especially as a rookie. I mean, come on. We want to take a quick break to thank our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. Beth and her team understand what it takes to be a good neighbor. More than anything, they are community focused. Beth has given away scholarships to two local seniors in Shelby County the last 2 years. She also hosts an annual Christmas party during downtown Christmas parade and has barnyard party pals come set up at her office. And when it comes to sports, she is always happy to sponsor a local sports team. Morristown Youth Football is one current example. If you want to work with people who treat you like family, give Beth and her team a call. Number for her office is 317 392 3922. Their office is located at 308 North Harrison Street in Shelbyville, right next to the Cow Palace. If you want to go online, Beth's website is bethprince.com.
All right, we're back. We're going to be talking about some Big Ten basketball. IU basketball held their media day yesterday, so this kind of brought up a couple of different topics. And there was a tweet that Drew saw about the top 10 arenas in the Big Ten. So we just a couple things we wanted to talk about. But Drew, I can't believe that we're basically past the middle of September and basketball, college basketball is kind of like things are starting to come out. We're getting ready for the season. Like, do you think that's crazy, or are you
It's
kind of?
within reach finally. Like I
Yeah,
mean, it's a long road from March. And I know it ends in April and they're, transfer portal's kind of becoming a free agency thing, but it's so close. We can taste it. We're still a couple months away from like official games happening, but we'll get secret scrimmages going on, a bunch of midnight madness stuff. So we're almost there. We're almost there.
that's an interesting point because like I was even thinking about this the other day. Like right after the season, all the transfer portal stuff happens, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh my gosh, this is exciting. We got this new guy. Whoever you root for, you're excited because, or maybe you're not excited um,
I
about
definitely
the
wasn't as a Purdue fan because they didn't get any transfers, but go ahead.
yeah, the roster turnover, whether you're happy with it or not. For IU fans, they probably were excited. Then you have to wait all summer for it, for things to even happen and to see and play. So it's exciting, the transfer portal and all that's going on. But yeah, we're finally, like you said, it's within reach. But so IU had their media day yesterday. We'll talk about that in a second. But a guy named Sean Paul, he was Sean Paul. That's funny. I didn't even think about that being his name. He's not the singer or rapper. He works for the Field of 68, but he did his Big Ten power rankings. So I'll just read the top 10. And he even mentioned that, hey, this is by far the toughest in the sport to rank. And he's like, I'll surely be wrong on several of these. And Drew,
Absolutely, it is the hardest to do.
right,
Big
you
Ten,
and I
they
were talking
just
about this
beat
before.
the crap out of each other year in, year out, and it's ridiculous to try and predict anything.
Well, that, and then you have all these new players. I was looking at the list of like the top players in the conference, and I mean, I honestly couldn't. I mean, I don't follow college basketball closely, but like I feel like I at least keep up with the a little bit, and I couldn't name some of the players, or I wasn't familiar with them. Maybe I knew their name, but didn't know that much about them. So yeah, I would sure say it's really hard to predict. But this is his list, and I was like, I'll do the top 10. So number one, Purdue; two, Michigan State; three, Indiana; four, Oregon; five, Ohio State; six, Iowa; seven, Rutgers; eight, Illinois; nine, Maryland; and 10, UCLA. Again, just Purdue is number one, Indiana is number three. So,
Huh.
Drew, what are
Oh,
your
wait,
initial thoughts on?
shout out Field of 68. For some reason, they follow me on Twitter, so that's cool.
Hey, well, and it sounds like they're happy with Purdue, or they're thinking they're going to have a good season. Which it's hard to bet against Matt Painter, and I know Braden Smith's obviously back. But what are your thoughts on that list as far as Purdue being number one?
I mean, I'm completely biased here for Purdue, but I tend to agree because even without Zach Edey, Lance Jones, Mason Gillis, they're missing out on, and even with the decommitment of Kanan Catchings, that hurts a little bit. But still got Jakari Harris coming in. Raleigh Burgess is a good big guy. Daniel Jacobson, I think, is going to be an excellent replacement for Zach Edey down the road. And then even a couple 3-stars that are pretty good. And I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, but Jakari Harris, Glenn Robinson's son, it's good to have the big dogs, coming back to Purdue. So that's always fun.
And then are the other teams? And you don't have to. I mean, if you want to mention Indiana, you can. But like, what other teams in the Big Ten are you kind of like thinking? Well, just based off of maybe who's coming back, what new players they brought in. Or is there any other teams that you think will kind of finish towards the top?
Well, we mentioned this, but IU, they had a really good summer. The transfer portal was good to them. You missed out on was it McNeely? He ended up going to UConn for
Yes.
freshman. But you
Yeah.
still have a top 25 player in Bryson Tucker. Luke Goody's going to be a really good player, I think, for IU. Omar Ballo, again, he was like my holy grail in terms of who Purdue should have got, but
Hmm.
that's okay. I think you got the best center in the country. I don't think there's any shame in saying that. Miles Rising, Kane, and Carlisle are going to be pretty good. But yeah, Rutgers, I was a little surprised to see them. You said they were 7 on the list.
Yep.
Now, they have 2 top 5 players coming in, number 2 and number 4, Eris Bailey and Dylan Harper. But they also have they have 2 4-stars and a 3-star coming in as well. And look, freshmen, they can do you a lot in the regular season, but have we maybe since like the Fab Five, or maybe like Purdue's baby boilers back with Robbie Hummel and all those guys, have we seen like a really good recruiting class come to the Big Ten like recently?
Um, I mean, as far as like when you say good, are you saying like one of the top in the whole country, or as
Like
far as like?
top tier. I think Rutgers has the number 1 recruiting class in the country.
Oh, I don't think no. As far as what these two studs coming in, like the two guards, the two guards, I believe, right? Harper and then I
Yeah,
don't remember the other guy's name, but
Eris Bailey.
okay. So no, I don't think we've ever had two, well, especially going to the same team. So that is exciting.
Yeah, because like even with like Michigan State back in the day, Gary Harris, I think he was kind of alone. Miles Bridges, he had a couple guys with him, but they were injured a bit. Yeah, I can't like Michigan State's usually the team to bring in a lot of top 100 recruits, but I don't remember him having a ton of them on the same team.
Well, I think part of it too is since the Big Ten plays a different style compared to some of the other conferences. I think
That's true.
getting the premier guards out of high school now that the things have changed as far as the transfer portal being even probably more important, definitely more important than the high school. Because if you're unless you're like a top 50, I don't know, top 75 high school play, you're not getting looked at as much now from
Right.
the top colleges. So we probably won't see any unless you're Purdue, because he's probably never going to change the way that he recruits.
He
You won't
better
see these.
not.
I like it. I think. Well, I also think that you need to kind of adapt to the times a little bit. And I think he'll do that after this season. I think he'll probably. Well, maybe not. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Maybe he won't have to, but we probably won't see like those big high school recruiting classes. But I mean, as far as this list goes, though, the one that maybe surprised me, I didn't mention him, but so I mentioned the top 10, but 11 is Northwestern, 12 is Michigan. So I think Michigan being
Michigan's gonna have a
12.
tough year, man.
You think
I
so?
know Dusty May's coming in, but Doug McDaniel, outside of Braden Smith, might have been the best point guard in the league, and he transferred. So that one stings. Let me find my list here. Because I mean, this is a team that wasn't that great to begin with. They're losing a bunch of transfers. They're gaining some, but they got that golden guy coming with Dusty May from FAU, the really tall guy. They do have Justin Pippen, which is Scotty's son, as a freshman. He was number 6 in the top 100, but I don't know, man. I just don't see. I think they'll. We were talking about the Big Ten tournament this year is going to be 15 teams, so 3 teams will be cut. I could see Michigan being in, assuming that 1 team has a triple bye, 4 have a double, and 4 others have a single bye. I could see Michigan in a single bye, but not much higher.
So would that be what top? Would that be
That
top
would
10?
be yeah, top 10. So yeah, I guess that better than what they think, but I don't know. That it's gonna be tough. There's so many
Yeah, I just
teams
think
that
with
they have to go through.
no, you're right, and I just think with the the job that he did at FAU as the head coach, and now that he'll have probably better players on his roster. Maybe not. I mean, I just know um, having more talent. He plays a more modern style. I just think maybe that will um, have maybe give Michigan a couple advantages as far as over some of these other teams. I don't know though. I think the style of play throughout the whole conference is kind of starting to shift. But that's one thing I wanted to mention with IU Media Day was my biggest takeaway. So that was yesterday. Today's Thursday. It was on Wednesday. My biggest takeaway from IU Media Day was Mike Woodson was talking about how they might go more small ball. So in the last couple of years, they've been kind of forced to play out of the post a little bit with based off their personnel. 2 years ago, it was Trace Jackson Davis. Last
Mm-hmm.
year, it was Khalil Ware and then Malik Renew. So now they have Luke Goody, like you said, and then McKenzie and Baco coming back. Woodson was talking about putting them at the 4 and maybe putting
Ooh,
Renew or Ball at the 5 and maybe going a little bit more small ball. So then you have if Renew's in, you have 5 guys who can make a 3 then. But we'll see if that happens because I believe Mike Woodson has talked about that before, wanting to go smaller. And even when he was hired at Indiana, he was talking about how his teams with the Knicks were great 3-point shooting teams and playing with smaller, quicker lineups. So maybe we'll finally see that from Woodson in Indiana. But what's your take on that? Because obviously you've seen Purdue play Indiana the last couple of years.
well, the one thing that was brought up right away when these Pac-12 teams were supposed to join the Big Ten is the Big Ten going to have to adapt to West Coast ball, or are they going to have to learn how to play bully ball? I thought that the West Coast teams were going to have to learn how to play bully ball because I mean, like we saw Purdue and Zach Edey dominate. We see all these great centers in the Big Ten dominate. So to hear Woodson say that, even though he does have Balu, who again I think is the best big man in the country, I kind of get it because you want to adapt to the times, but at the same time, Big Ten is Big Ten. Just go with Big Ten ball.
I know. I kind of like how the old. I like the Big Ten. I like watching it. It's maybe I'm just because I'm used to it.
It's the best conference there is. No way about it. Don't even try to debate me.
Well, I think it's even getting better with these other teams joining because I'm excited to see how they how they play, what their style is, their coaches, their players. So there's obviously a lot of new players coming into the conference with 18 teams now. So, but yeah, IU and Purdue are kind of predicted to be at the top, which is exciting. But just you had a tweet that you saw from Andy Katz, I believe. Is that right about the top 10 arenas?
Yeah, Kris isn't a big fan of Andy Katz right now. So Andy Katz's top 10 Big Ten basketball arenas. This is coming from the Big Ten men's basketball Twitter page. Number one, Mackey. We even with us, the two of us, we agree. Number one, that's fair. Number two, Pauley Pavilion, UCLA. Number three, Breslin Center, Michigan State. Number four, Rutgers with the Jersey Mike's Arena, which is ludicrous to me. We'll get to that. Number five, Welsh Ryan at Northwestern. Number six, State Farm Center of Illinois. Number seven, Assembly Hall, which even for me as a Purdue fan is ridiculous. And then eight, Kohl Center for Wisconsin. Number nine, Williams Arena for Minnesota. And number 10, Alaska Airlines for Washington. So yeah, Assembly Hall number seven, huh?
I could go on and on. I could go. This could be like another hour of a podcast, but we're not going to do that. If there was going to be a number one besides IU, I could see it being Purdue and Mackey Arena. That's fair to say. But IU being number seven is just like that's the craziest thing I've ever. Not the craziest thing I've ever seen, but the one that made me laugh was Jersey Mike's Arena with Rutgers. And I'm sure this year they'll have some good crowds, some crazy crowds, and I don't know what he's basing that off of. I don't know what his criteria was for selecting those, but he's obviously never been to maybe he has been to an IU game and just didn't appreciate what was going on, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Maybe it was a game they lost and the crowd was terrible. So
I tend to agree with Andy Katz on a lot of things, especially with Big Ten stuff. For me, if I'm making this list, it's Mackey 1, Pauley Pavilion 2, because, I mean, that is an historic arena. I'm glad it's in the Big Ten now. And then I'm throwing in Assembly Hall at number 3. Now, and you could probably argue with me on that, but I just love Pauley Pavilion that much. I will say, though, I do like how he has Minnesota's arena because I love the elevated floor. I wish Purdue still had it. They got rid of it. It upsets me.
So yeah, that's a good because if you were going to mention the elevated floor, I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't know I can't think of another.
That's really the only thing that's good about it, honestly.
Well, yeah, I think they call it the barn, right?
The barn, yep.
It's just when you're watching the game, it just looks so weird because at certain points you can only see the coaches chest and above or something because they're kind of just it's they're just kind of it's like they're watching a gymnastics meet or something. They're all I don't know that they maybe not a gymnastics meet, but this looks
like
totally
a boxing
weird,
coach or something.
Oh yeah, that's probably a better example. But yeah, it's weird. I wonder how it would feel to play on a court like that. But coaching, I just feel like that would be so. But aren't the coaches of the head coaches allowed on the floor?
Yeah, the head coaches are up above, but the bench is you're eye level with the floor.
Well, imagine coming out of the game and you kind of forget that you're elevated and you take a step and you just that'd be an embarrassing viral moment for social media. That's for social media, but
yeah, that would be pretty bad.
No, that's a good point. That's a good one with Minnesota. But yeah, what was the other one that we thought was funny? Oh yeah, Northwestern. And I'm not saying anything bad against Northwestern, but I just feel
Look,
really
the updates are nice, but it's not 2 spots better than IU.
Well, they're saying some people said that Assembly Hall is the hardest place to play in the whole country. So I mean, I don't know how he got so far off on that opinion or a difference of opinion, but everybody has their own what they like, what they don't like. I do think Purdue, Mackey, and Assembly Hall are very different, and they're cool in their own ways. And all these places are cool in their own ways, but yeah, as far as an environment, I just can't imagine getting better than Assembly Hall, but that's what I've been used to. So
Mackey is legitimately one of the loudest places I've ever been in. I've been in there for terrible games too, where Purdue will blow a team out. It's not even close. Is still the way that roof reflects everything is insane.
I like the seating, how the seating is surrounded all the way. I just like that.
Yeah, and
I
it
think that's
also like
I think,
the gym itself is underground. Like you go down. You don't have to go upstairs really anywhere except for like the top rows. But like it's a
well,
ball.
do you feel like the players feel like the fans are on top of them? Because that's what I've heard at Assembly Hall. I feel like they're on top, like the fans are like on top of you because how it steeps, it kind of goes up at an angle. So I don't know how it feels at Mackey, but like how would you know,
It's
describe it, I guess?
fairly like stair stepped very well. Um, my thing is that, and this is for local stuff, but my dad and I, we always called Shelbyville Mini Mackey. It's
Oh,
kind of like
okay,
that.
yeah.
It's not all the way around. The Shelbyville's not all the way around, but to me, I love Garrett Gymnasium so much. It's Mini Mackey.
Well, I just wonder too how like it would affect your like the shooting background. I don't know how these places make Mackey compared to Assembly as far as like just even the seating is different, like we're talking about. So if you're shooting the basketball, your background would be different. So I don't know if it'd be harder at one place or easier at another place or anything like that. But I feel like those two, in my opinion, it has to be Mackey and Assembly Hall at the very top.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, at least Assembly's top three. Again, I still think Poly's a little bit better, but yeah. And just one more thing before we end it, we have a minute left on the Zoom call. Garrett Gymnasium is the hardest place I've ever had to shoot because there's no wall behind it. You have to really get used to that. But yeah, so anyway, that is it for this week's episode. Thanks again to our presenting sponsor, Beth Prince State Farm. Have a great weekend, everyone. We will see you around.